Well, we're still just a few days away from the spring election, but that's not stopping some Badgers from getting those early votes in.
That's right. NBC 15's Shayna Najawin went to the UW campus this morning, and Shayna, students are showing up.
John, Maria, political experts are anticipating more college students to show up than they usually do for elections of this sort. And so far, UW-Madison students are proving that to be true.
The fact that we're seeing high turnouts in this election, to me, is an encouraging sign that, democracy is alive and well.
There are 5 days until the race for Wisconsin's Supreme Court, and college students are expected to heavily influence the outcome. Freshman at UW-Madison and co-lead intern with Badgers Vote, Amanjot Kaur, says while her peers seem passionate about the Supreme Court race, the smaller elections are often forgotten.
So that was one of those things where we had to increase awareness about those smaller down ballot elections. And even with the Supreme Court election, a lot of people have been trained to think that November, the first Tuesday in November is election day, and that's the only election day, and spring is off season.
Professor with the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, Doug McLeod, says everyone's vote counts, but voting in college can set the stage.
Our dietary habits are sort of established. And other things like our voting habits are established. And those patterns sort of manifest themselves for years and years after that.
McLeod says he has noticed an uptick in political engagement.
I would say in the last 15 years, that's been a really encouraging trend that makes me much more optimistic about the future of our country and the future of our democracy.
If you are a person who lives here and you care a lot about your housing, about rent, about alcohol licensing, about parking tickets, about public transport, any of the issues on campus that the government has an impact over that bother you, you have the ability to say something about them by participating in local elections.
The spring election is on Tuesday, April 4th, and as a reminder, in-person absentee voting will take place through the 2nd, and there will be no voter registration on April 1st or 2nd per state law. Live in the studio, Shayna Najawin, NBC 15 News.